apologize once again for a delayed start, and let's have a roll call.
Bloom.
Here.
Gordon. Here. Bigelow. Present. Patterson. Here. Williams.
Here.
We have a full complement and a quorum. Let me announce the following items, please, that are going to be pulled from the vote only, the consent and the vote only calendar, and with one exception, are going to be heard at the end of today's hearing. One is going to be moved to the pulled and moved to May 11th. Item 3600 on the consent calendar. Issue number 8. The rest of these are vote only. Issue 8, issue 16, issue 20, issue 33, and issue 35 are all going to be pulled and heard at the conclusion of our hearing. In addition, issue number 31 on vote only will be pulled and heard on May 11th. And with that, we have one item on the consent calendar.
I would move the item on the consent calendar for the Department of Conservation.
Second.
Thank you. Let's vote on that.
Bloom.
Aye.
Bigelow. Aye. Gordon. Aye. Patterson. Aye. Williams.
Aye.
Now on the vote only calendar, is there a motion?
I would move on the vote only calendar items 1 through 7, 9 through 11, 13, 14, 17, 19, 21 through 26, 28 through 30, and 36.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. We'll have a roll call vote, please.
Bloom.
Aye.
Bigelow.
Hold on. I need to recuse myself from issue 10. My mother-in-law works for the DMV and was one of the people involved in the design of that project.
And Mr. Gordon, as the maker of the motion, can you accommodate by removing that from this?
Yeah, I would amend that motion to remove item number 10.
Second concurs.
Bloom.
Aye.
Bigelow. Aye. Gordon. Aye. Patterson. Aye. Williams.
I would move item number 10 on the vote only calendar.
Thank you. Let's vote on that.
Bloom.
Aye.
Bigelow. Aye. Gordon. Aye. Patterson. Aye. Williams.
Not voting.
On the vote only calendar, I would move the following items: 12, 15, 18, 27, and 34. I feel like I'm calling bingo.
You didn't put a letter in front of them. And we'll vote now.
Bloom.
Aye.
Bigelow. Gordon. Aye. Patterson. No. Williams.
Thank you. I think that concludes the vote-only calendar and takes us to the items to be heard. We'll begin with issue number 1, the Governor's Transportation Funding Package. Welcome. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. I'm Brian Annis, the Undersecretary from the State Transportation Agency, and I'm joined at my right here by Kome Ajisi, the Chief Deputy Director from Caltrans, and I'm just going to help present on this first item. Your agenda does a good job of outlining the benefits, funding sources, loan repayments, and reforms in the governor's proposal, so I won't repeat any of that information. Let me just set the context for the proposal. This is substantially the same proposal that the administration presented last fall. It was developed after meeting and listening to all four caucuses on what each deemed important in formulating a lasting plan to improve our transportation in the state. Some push for new revenue, others for reforms. Our proposal acknowledges the desire and the need for both. The proposal reflects the following core principles. Number one, focus on fix-it-first priorities to target new revenues on the acute state and local deferred maintenance problem in California. Number two, make investments in targeted areas to ensure California's long-term competitiveness, like the state's important trade corridors. Number three, continue the state-local partnership to fund transportation improvements important to the state and localities. Number four, adopt specific performance measures and reporting requirements so policymakers and the public know exactly what investments will be achieved, and administrative agencies are held accountable for performance. Number five, do not impact the precariously balanced general fund. And number six, ensure new transportation revenues are dedicated solely to transportation purposes. As noted, our proposal is a balance of new dedicated transportation revenue and reasonable reforms. Since 2012, 21 other states have enacted transportation funding plans for investment. These states are of all political stripes, red, purple, and blue. Just as those states have enacted new transportation revenues, so should California. In short, our transportation infrastructure must be fixed, and new revenue is necessary to do that. Mr. Chairman and members, I am happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. I know we have a report from LAO. Why don't we proceed with that?
Yes, good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. Paul Jacobs from the Legislative Analyst Office. So what we've done, we've taken a look at a specific slice of the governor's proposal. Backing up a little bit and give you some context, we thought it might be helpful for the legislature to understand the needs of the state highway system before any funding might be dedicated or committed. And so what we've done is, you can see in the agenda here, the governor's proposal proposes to add funding for lots of different transportation types of programs. We've specifically focused on the state highway system. So out of the $3.6 billion that he's proposing, about $1.4 billion of that is going to go towards core assets on the state highway system. Now, those core assets include pavement, culverts, and bridges. And so we've provided a short little handout here to kind of give you a resource and a summary of what we've done in our analysis. The three things that we've done is we, first of all, working closely with Caltrans, estimated independently what the needs are for those three core assets in the state highway system. We've also provided a legislative roadmap of our recommendations. Now, this is kind of a high-level, kind of overarching roadmap that can be applied to any funding proposal. And the third thing that we did, which is more applicable to today's discussion, is applied that roadmap and assessed how the governor's proposal actually meets our recommendations on our roadmap. So taking a quick look at the handout, if you may. Turning to page 1, we provide a little bit of background on the two programs that provide maintenance and repair work on the state highway system. That's the Highway Maintenance Program and the State Highway Operation and Protection Program, or commonly known as the SHOP. On page 2, we have a summary of our results of our assessment of what the needs are for the state highway system. On page 3 is that roadmap that I described. This is a roadmap of our recommendations for the legislature to consider as deliberations continue over any kind of funding proposal that the legislature might want to consider. And specifically looking at page 4, we've provided an analysis of the governor's proposal and how the governor's proposal meets up to the needs that we have estimated. And as you can see on the graph on page 4, we show the allocations of the governor's proposal in relationship to the needs that we have identified for the highway maintenance program and for the SHOP. The first result that we have found is that the governor's proposal, out of the $1.4 billion being proposed for these core assets on the state highway system, only about $20 million of it goes towards the highway maintenance program. We have identified the highway maintenance program as having the most cost-effective projects to treat the needs of the state highway system, and we found that the governor's proposal does not meet those needs. Additionally, the governor's proposal seems to misallocate in the SHOP and provide too much funding over the long run, because there are permanent needs and there are temporary or one-time backlog needs. And over the long run, it seems that the governor's proposal, which is proposing permanent fees and taxes, would be providing too much funding to the SHOP to meet those needs once the backlog has been addressed. And the final item that we assessed in the governor's proposal is accountability measures. The governor does propose performance metrics to be used and accountability measures to be used, but we found them both to be limited, specifically on bridges and for the California Transportation Commission to provide oversight. We have recommended in our roadmap that the CTC have project level oversight, but the governor does not allow that and only allows the CTC to have complete authority to withdraw funding for the entire program. And so if you have any further questions related to our assessment or related to the governor's proposal, we're here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a question from Mr. Williams.
I'm just trying to make sure I heard you right. You're saying that this proposal, which has been criticized in some circles for not raising enough revenue, raises too much revenue for infrastructure investment, and
Sure.
and that we will be through the backlog in the state? Our backlog in the state is so huge that seems almost inconceivable. How many years would it take for us to get to that point?
Sure, Mr. Williams. Let me clarify that a little bit on page 4. On the graph that I show there, what I was referring to was the allocation of the funding. So that what I'm referring to is the governor's putting too much money into the SHOP program and not enough into the highway maintenance program. So we're not saying that overall the governor's proposal is too much. Again, we're only identifying the $1.4 billion of the governor's $3.6 billion to meet these specific needs on the highway system. So we're not talking about the entirety of the proposal, but it's more about an allocation issue that we were talking about rather than the overall size of the proposal.
Good. Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Department of Finance. Any feedback? All right. Thank you. We'll hear from the public. Members of the public want to be heard on this item. The recommendation is to hold open.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Member Steve Baker with Aaron Reed & Associates, representing the professional engineers in California government. We're here reluctantly in opposition to the governor's proposal unless it's amended. We understand that there's a need for new revenue. We agree that there's a need for new revenue. However, the governor's plan proposes to double the amount of outsourcing at twice the cost. We don't think that's a reasonable way of spending that additional revenue. Also, the proposal has a PPP proposal, public-private partnerships, that would outsource the inspection and have the consortium inspecting their own work. That's something that we think also needs to be addressed before it moves forward. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair and members. Tony Dang with California Walks, also speaking on behalf of the California Bicycle Coalition today. While we fully support the effort to raise revenues to address our state's maintenance needs, we must also ensure that all new investments help us transition to a sustainable and multimodal transportation system. And in that regard, we believe that the governor's proposal falls quite a bit short and does not help Caltrans meet its own stated goals of doubling walking, tripling bicycling, and doubling transit use. So some recommendations for the committee to take up are to redirect the governor's proposal of $100 million in the low carbon roads program to the active transportation program. I did want to highlight that the direction of $100 million for the active transportation program has been included in Senator Bell's most recent amendments to SB X1-1. In terms of the transit piece, in addition to transit capital that's provided in the governor's proposal, it's imperative that transit operations is also also receives revenue because we cannot achieve our mode shift goals without addressing transit operations. So we propose a 50-50 split for any new revenue going to transit to go to transit capital and transit operations. And within transit operations, we strongly urge you to support setting aside $50 million for a student transit pass program to encourage mode shift at an early age. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Michelle Parasite with Public Advocates. We are a nonprofit public interest law firm that has been challenging the systemic causes of poverty and racial discrimination since 1971. Of the $40 million in one-time funding proposed for the Transit and Intercity Rail Capital Program, we recommend allocating half to that program and half to the Low-Carbon Transit Operations Program. If our transit agencies don't have the operating dollars they need to run frequent, reliable, and affordable service, their transit capital investments will sit idle. Transit capital investments must be matched by investment in maintaining and operating our existing system. In alignment with AB 2222, we believe $50 million of that $200 million to the Low Carbon Transit Operations Program should be specifically earmarked for a transit pass program for college, university, and K-12 students, as well as low-income residents. Well-designed transit pass programs have been proven to increase mode shift and transit ridership, fill empty seats, and create lifelong riders and a new generation. This one-time investment should be seen as a down payment on a multi-year program to make transit affordable for low-income students and others who depend on it. These requests are supported by the SB 535 Coalition and the Sustainable Communities for All Coalition. Thank you for your consideration.
Erica Rincon-Whitcomb with PolicyLink. I want to echo comments that were already stated by Tony with California Walks. We are in full support of that. And along these same lines of sending greater direction and support to Caltrans to achieve their sustainability and complete streets goals in their Caltrans strategic management plan, we also recommend that there should be greater direction around ensuring that complete streets implementation is happening within the projects, and that we're prioritizing resources to the most vulnerable communities that are of highest need. And another additional recommendation is that there needs to be greater direction from the legislature to Caltrans to leverage our transportation system to get triple bottom line returns that increase transportation access for everyone, while also expanding economic opportunity for communities with the highest levels of unemployment and poverty. Given that this system does contribute to significant job creation, we have the opportunity to improve employment and economic outcomes for the state and grow our local and regional economies by really targeting and training, recruiting, hiring folks with the highest barriers to employment. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and members, Dave Ackerman representing the Associated General Contractors. A slightly different look at it. I'll echo Mr. Williams' comments about the size of the problem we face. Our approach with the governor's program, we think the governor's headed in the right direction. We like the features in his program, but I think, as Mr. Williams, as you mentioned, the need is so huge and so almost insurmountable that we think additional dollars need to be allocated, especially towards the maintenance and fix and repair of our street and road system. I mean, the governor's program is a fix-it-first program to basically repair the horrible nature of our local streets and roads and highway system. We think it heads the right direction. We like the P3 program in it as a way to bring private investment into the process, and we think the innovations that the governor has put in his program is a start in the right direction. You have legislation in your House authored by your Transportation Committee Chair that proposes slightly different approaches. We're supportive of continuing that process and hoping to meld those two together in a successful transportation package this year. Just has to be a little larger, with all due respect, than what the governor's proposing. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair and members. Rico Mastrodonato with the Trust for Public Land. I first want to thank you and your staff for all the work that goes into this. To reach our GHG goals, it's predicated in getting people out of their cars. And when I think of sustainable communities, I see a mosaic of bike and ped paths and a lot of green infrastructure to induce non-motorized transportation. So I'm here as a member of the SC4A Coalition and 535 Coalition and urging we move funding from low carbon road program to the active transportation program. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That concludes the public hearing, and we have a recommendation to hold this item open, which we'll do, and move on to our next one. Thank you very much for your presentations. Our next item is issue 2, the UC Institute of Transportation Studies. I understand that we have friends from Cal and UCLA. Bruins and Bears coming together. Dogs and cats. That Ghostbusters, I think. Welcome.
Thank you. Assemblymember Bloom, members of the committee, I'm Brian Taylor. I'm a professor of urban planning and director of the Institute of Transportation Studies at UCLA. It's an honor for me to speak before you today. The UC Institutes of Transportation Studies were established in 1947 by the California legislature to provide research and education to advise and support the state and its constituent governments in developing and managing many of its transportation systems essential to the growth of the state. With an initial allocation in 1947 of $920,000 per year, ITS has grown to comprise 4 campus branches at Berkeley, Davis, Irvine, and UCLA that in concert form the premier transportation research institution on the globe. ITS today has comprised of over 100 faculty, twice as many staff researchers, and more students that attract more than $30 million in extramural grant and contract funding every year from public and private sources to examine everything from pavement management to vehicle emissions reduction to congestion management to transportation finance to automated vehicles. In the 69 years since ITS's inception, the California population has increased by 4 times, the buying power of the dollar has declined by 10 times, but state support of ITS has increased 7%. So today, ITS leverages outside funding from its state allocation by a ratio of about 30 to 1. But far more important than attracting money to the university is what our research buys for the state in terms of dollars saved, revenues generated, and jobs supported. Almost all of our research develop ways to make the transportation system higher performing, more cost efficient, cleaner, and safer. In the materials we've shared with your committee, we detail some of the ways that ITS research has benefited the California economy over the years, though I should emphasize that much low-hanging fruit remains. Our increasingly heavy reliance on outside funding to support our research and education missions has certainly made us entrepreneurial. But at the same time, it's made it increasingly difficult for us to provide needed advice and support to state agencies like the Energy Commission, the Air Resources Board, and Caltrans, as well as regional bodies and local governments, as well as the legislature, who frequently turn to us for help. Our soft money, contract, and grant funding business model means that our research is conducted on time horizons of at least 18 months, making rapid response to pressing policy issues and questions almost impossible, though this is just the sort of rapid response that most public officials seek. To offer one example, the rise of new shared mobility services like Uber and Lyft have raised a host of policy and regulatory dilemmas for state officials and local officials alike. And ITS has faculty on hand who are experts in this area. But by the time a typical grant process could be completed to examine the issue for regulators, the work produced may well be moot and decisions already made. And this has happened much too often. To address this issue, the funding request before you is coupled with the formation of a statewide advisory committee of transportation stakeholders. In key state agencies, the legislature, metropolitan planning organizations, local governments, and the private sector to guide us in identifying and delivering pressing rapid response research. Second, in delivering practice and policy relevant research needed by local, regional, state agencies and officials, this funding augmentation will allow us to do a much better job of translating and transmitting the results of often highly technical research for decision makers at all levels. Sadly, a large share of that $30 million annual research portfolio I mentioned earlier never finds its way to inform policy and practice because the grant funding we receive is to conduct the research and not to disseminate the results. And third, California's transportation systems are central to its role in the global economy, And ITS has for decades produced the best and the brightest graduates in transportation engineering, business, policy, and planning, who staff technology, logistics, and consulting firms that help power the California economy. Our graduates also work at all levels of local, regional, and state government to give the Golden State a leg up in squeezing more bang for the buck out of our transportation systems. The recently departed head of the Federal Transit Administration was a classmate of mine at Berkeley. She's now back in California as the Director of Planning and Policy at the LAMTA. It's just one example. To close, I would note that the reputation of the UC Institute of Transportation Studies for rigorous, relevant research has garnered a wide array of supporters over the years. While our research has not always reached conclusions preferred by every stakeholder interest, our commitment to rigor and independence in our transportation scholarship has resulted in a large and heterogeneous set of ITS supporters who appreciate the value of this independence. So in the materials submitted to the committee, you'll find 42 letters of support from, among others, 8 metropolitan planning organizations and local governments, 8 environmental organizations, 7 motor vehicle manufacturers, 4 public transit agencies, 4 new shared mobility companies, 4 private industry groups, 3 air quality management districts, 2 public utilities, and a labor union. Many thanks for your committee's time, and I will be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, committee members, while we really appreciate the work that the ITS does, and they do good work, I think the request has to be put in the context of the larger transportation funding issues that we have. The public transportation account derives primarily from the sales tax on diesel, and approximately 60% of these funds are allocated to the state transit assistance for local transit purposes, and the rest of that is expended on planning, intercity rail, and a balance goes to fund rail and transit projects in the STIP. Now, the current STIP that we are dealing with, the 2016 STIP, shows that we have to deprogram about $740 million worth of projects. Now, this particular request, over the life of the STIP, would amount to about $45 million, which would be part of what it would basically contribute to the shortfall in the STIP. And so again, while we appreciate the work and we really support what ITS does, one has to look at this request in the context of the larger funding issues that we have in the STIP.
Thank you, and I think you neglected to identify yourself. And
My name is Kome Ajise. I'm the Chief Deputy Director for Caltrans.
Thank you. LAO, Department of Finance.
Mr. Chair, Paul Jacobs again from the LAO. We have no recommendation on this item.
Thank you.
Hello, Mr. Chair. Steve Wells from the Department of Finance. I just want to add, just sort of reiterate what Comey said about the funding. We're not making a judgment on the quality of work that's being provided. More just the funding source. The funding source of the PTA would directly affect the STIP, and the STIP is the State Transit Improvement Program. The STIP is currently facing deprogramming over $700 million worth of projects. So it's more just a consequence decision.
Thank you. And we'll have public comment now.
Mr. Chair, members, Joshua Shaw with the California Transit Association representing the state's public transit operators in support of the UC request. We are mindful of the trade-offs described by Mr. Ajise at Caltrans and Mr. Wells at Finance. Every public transportation account dollar is scarce, which is why we supported legislation, including by the chair who co-authored a bill with Assemblymember Chu, to raise new dollars for the public transportation account. Having said that, our members and our association over the years have engaged with UC, been engaged by UC on various practical studies that we think help make public transit systems more effective and efficient. And we think the $3 million ask per year request here makes up for decades of stagnant funding and could lead to better research and improvements in public transit. And we'd urge you to consider supporting the request while we work with the Department and Finance and others to figure out the trade-offs inherent in taking PTA dollars for this additional purpose. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and members, Delaney Hunter on behalf of the Sacramento Municipal Utilities District. We think this is key for the future of transportation and ask for your support.
Julie Malinowski-Ball on behalf of the California Electric Transportation Coalition. We support the augmentation. The presentation actually used all my best lines. I think rigorous, robust, world-leading, innovative, and working well with others. We support that. Thanks.
And Mr. Chair, members, Bonnie Holmes-Jen with the American Lung Association in California, and just want to provide support from a public health perspective, the importance of ITS research as input to the policy process and helping move forward this transformation to improve health and air quality. Thanks.